to A Joint to the Jurassic. The next morning, Sam and Jane awoke to the tweets of garden birds and discordant crows from Chicky, Sam's pet rooster. "Are you awake?" Jane asked as she heard Sam turn over. "Yes," he yawned. "I'm not going to be able to sleep more now. I've started thinking about the stone and Sunny." "Me neither. I'm getting up," Jane said, sliding out of her sleeping bag and folding it up neatly. "We're going to have to hang around for breakfast. Our mums are doing a big cook-up, remember?" "Try and eat as fast as you can." "I can't wait." "I do want to go," Sam said, "but I'm also a bit nervous. We've been in trouble there before." "It'll be fine," Jane said airily. "Don't worry about it." "Says the one who almost got us fried," Sam said, referring to the very last adventure they'd had together when Jane had suggested they go to Pompeii, not realizing that the bustling Roman town had been destroyed by the violent eruption of a nearby volcano, Vesuvius. "Well," said Jane, who tended to be argumentative, "we all got home safe and sound, didn't we?" "Yes, but only just," Sam said. "Come on, let's go and see if we can do something to hurry up the breakfast, like set the table." As the cousins set the table, they heard Sam's mother saying to her sister Sue, Jane's mother, "Aren't they so good setting the table without being asked?" They grinned at each other, and Sam felt a bit guilty. Breakfast was lavish. Pancakes, omelettes, toast, bacon, sausage, tomatoes, and mushrooms. "Oh, I almost forgot," Mr. Knoll said after everyone had filled their plates and started to tuck in. "This will interest you, Sam. A paleontologist from the Zico Cape Town Museum phoned me, a Mr. Makuna. He said he was going to be doing a field trip in the area in a couple of weeks, and he asked if he could come and look for fossils on our farm. I told him about that one you found up on the hill, and he was very interested. I thought it would be fun for you kids to show them the fossil. Maybe they'll let you join them for a day or two. I know how into dinosaurs you are." "Wow, that would be great," Sam said. "Peter and I have been saying for ages we need to get a paleontologist to look at our fossil." "He couldn't give me an exact date, but it'll be sometime these holidays," Mr. Knoll said. "May I have the orange juice, please?" The meal was nearing its end when Sam remembered that he'd wanted to take sausages for Sunny. Darn, he'd already eaten 2 and now only 3 remained. He'd better move fast if Sunny were to get her treats. Swiftly he took another sausage and put it on his plate. He looked around. His mother was looking in his direction. 5 minutes later he was beginning to lose his nerve. He felt like someone was watching him whenever he tried to drop the sausage into the napkin on his lap. After another 5 minutes he eventually managed it. There, he had won, but it wouldn't go very far. It would be like giving a peanut to an elephant. Jane was sitting opposite him, and he kicked her and looked meaningfully at the near-empty plate of sausages. She looked blankly at him. He gave an inward sigh and, waiting until the adults were chatting, said meaningfully to her, "A sunny day is a good day to eat sausages." "Huh?" she said, and then a look of comprehension dawned. "Oh, yes, I think I'll have a sausage," she said in a horribly theatrical and attention-attracting voice. Honestly, Sam thought, wishing he hadn't spoken. He glanced anxiously at the adults as she lifted the second from last remaining sausage straight from the platter and onto her lap. No one noticed. Thinking of the minutes of anxiety he'd endured trying to decide the right time to lift a sausage, Sam could only be impressed. Looking triumphant, her success going to her head, Jane reached over and speared the very last sausage on the plate. As she transferred it, it slipped from her fork, bounced once on the table, and fell onto the floor into the eager jaws of Phoebe, who'd been lying under the table and not begging, like a good dog. Although, as she'd smelt the bacon and sausage above her, she'd had bitter thoughts. The sausage was like a gift from the heavens, and she moved like greased lightning. Sam glanced anxiously at his father, who had an extremely strict no feeding pets at the table policy. Phoebe retired under the table with her prize, and only Sam and Jane noticed the slight lip-smacking noise as she licked the last delectable trace of sausage from her whiskers. They exchanged a glance and started to giggle. "What's the joke?" Sam's Uncle Ben asked them with a smile, but this just made them laugh all the harder. Mr. Knoll got up from the table and dropped a kiss on top of Mrs. Knoll's head. "Well, back to work. Thanks, love. That was delicious." And then nodding to Sam and Jane, "Sorry to dampen the mood, but you two are on dishwasher duty. Come, Ben, I'm going down to the sheep. Come and see my new rams. The pile of dishes which faced the children in the kitchen was enormous, and they rolled their eyes at each other. It was going to take ages. Snuffles, the farm cat, an ancient and evil-tempered beast who specialized in scratching for no reason at all, glowered at them from the middle of the table. Gingerly, Sam slid some side plates out from under his tail and piled them in the sink. He turned the taps on hard and squirted a massive jet of dishwashing liquid into the middle of the churning water. Peter and Maylie are going to be wondering where we are. Let's make this as quick as we can. In order to make the washing and drying up as speedy and fun as possible, they played the Stamp on Toes game. The rules were simple. The minute the one doing the drying up, in this case Jane, ran out of dishes to dry, she was allowed to stamp as hard as she could on Sam's toes. The game resulted in both the dishwasher and the dryer upper working as fast as possible. The dryer upper was allowed to have a free extra hard stamp if any bits of food were found adhering to the washed implements. Given the circumstances, however, Jane was merciful and did not claim her extra stamps, but wiped off the bits of food with a dishcloth. At last they were done, and pulling out the plug, Sam said, "There, finally, let's go get the stone." Peter and Maylie were sitting in the treehouse. Maylie was clutching a bag which she immediately opened to show them. "Look, I've got funny fixed eggs and a jam sandwich and a banana." "Well, she'll definitely love the eggs. Not so sure about the sandwich and banana. Anyway, shall we go to the top of the disappearing hill to make the wish?" "We always have before," Peter said, "and it is the safest place. No one ever goes there except us. Let's go." The children walked as fast as they could, puffing in the heat. The morning sun was already burning hot, and the air felt dusty and heavy to breathe. When they reached the top of the hill, they stood in a row and held hands, breathless with the climb and excitement, bracing themselves for the unpleasant sensations of time travel. Sam, who was on one end of the row, held the stone in his unoccupied hand and said slowly and carefully, "I wish that we were all back in the Jurassic with Sunny so that we can see how she's doing." Each of the children concentrated on gripping the hand or hands that they were holding as they felt the sickening, whirling sensation which began the time travel and took them through total blackness, which slowly filled with tiny specks of light, so bright they had to close their eyes or be blinded, followed by an unpleasant falling feeling, which ended in a hard bump and caused them to let go of each other. They opened their eyes. They were on a rocky plateau covered with small, widely spaced trees. In between the rocks grew strange, tufty plants. It was very hot and humid and reminded Sam of a greenhouse when the plants had just been sprayed and the temperature was up high. He noticed some plants with long, spiky fronds, some of which had tremendously long, thorn-like protuberances at the end of each leaf. He wondered what animal could eat a plant so well defended. Nothing that they wanted to meet. There were very few flowers to be seen, something they remembered from their last visit, and those they did see were unusual. They were plain white, with 3 large white petals and a long stigma sticking up in the middle. Peter stopped to look at them and said, "We're probably looking at some of the earliest flowers on earth. See, they don't have any fancy colours or smells. No bees to attract." "So who does their pollination?" Jane asked. "Other insects, and I guess there's a lot of wind pollination going on." "No bees, no birds, and no aeroplanes," Jane said. "Empty skies." "Well, there are bird-like dinosaurs which can probably fly," Peter said. "I'd love to see one of them." "But where is Sunny?" Maylie asked, looking all around. Sunny was the only dinosaur she needed to see. "It's probably going to take some time till we meet her," Sam said. "I think we should just walk around, very carefully." "This area doesn't look like where we got the Sunny egg or where she met up with the herd," Peter said. "No," Sam agreed. "It looks really hilly. Before it was quite flat with trees." "Well, come on," Jane said. "Let's get going." They walked, following the rocky stretches where the trees grew more thinly and walking was easier. After a time, the trees started to be replaced by shrubs and fern clumps, and they had to hop and climb over large boulders. The landscape became more rugged until in front of them they saw huge cliffs rising up in spiky turret-like formations which looked strangely like the remains of ancient weathered castles. They headed towards them and soon found themselves walking into a broad canyon. As they progressed, the rocky walls became higher and higher and the floor of the canyon narrower, and they began to feel a bit nervous, as they were essentially being closed in on either side by the sheer rock faces. Nothing happened to alarm them, however, and after not too long they reached the end of the canyon where the path led them downwards into a deep gully. When they exited that, they saw before them, some distance off, another cliff around which swooped and dived huge, strangely shaped birds. "But you said there weren't any birds yet," Jane said. But the more they looked, the clearer it became that they weren't looking at birds. "They're not really flying," Sam said, squinting his eyes. "They swoop and dive." And at the same time he and Peter shouted out, "Pterosaurs!" "Terra what?" Maylie said, looking very scared and grabbing Jane's hand. "The pterosaurs invented flight before birds," Peter explained. "Though, in fact, they didn't really fly as such. They had huge leathery wings that they used to glide, like a hang glider." "What did they eat?" Jane asked. "Not sure," Peter said. "I think they might have hunted fish. Probably other animals too. Well, anyway, if they're not vegetarians, I think we should go in the opposite direction to them," Jane said. "That means going back on our tracks through the canyon," Peter said reluctantly. "We can only go forward or back." "Let's go back," Sam said decidedly, and as Peter was the only one who wanted to go on, he bowed to the majority decision, and they started to walk back. Please show support for this podcast by subscribing and join us next week for Chapter 3, Sunny Saves the Day.